Todd Bowles Era Watch might not be on anywhere else just yet, but that's okay. As usual, we're ahead of our time on Jets Confidential Radio, and we're going to let you know how much longer the soon-to-be former Jets coach has before he lands on the unemployment line. The only other question left then is, will Mike McCagnon also get the boot, and if so, when? We'll discuss that and much more on JCR on PSN right now. All right, it's Tuesday, September 19th, 2017. I'm your host, Greg DePalma. We're a day late, but you know what it is? I guess if we're going to be ill, like I have been and my co-host has been over the last 24 to 48 hours, I guess it's good that we're ill at the same time. Jamal was ill last week, but he was on the show. I think he was ill after the show. So hopefully that's all behind us, and we'll have a big week ahead on Prime Sports Network and also over at ourlads.com on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. So let's introduce my co-host, Jan Levine. Jamal is not here. He couldn't make it today because he's usually scheduled for Monday. He'll be back with me tomorrow on the Ourlads Football Network with Dan Shanka at 4 o'clock tomorrow. And then Jamal will also be with me later in the week on our fantasy coverage on the OFN. But Jan Levine's here. And Jan, how are you?
Feeling a little bit better. Unfortunately, our Jets had another stinkeroo, though it was relatively competitive to about 35 seconds to go in the first half. And then the wheels fell off quickly. And unfortunately, not surprising. And we move on from here. But as you said, I think the Bowles and the McCagnon watch is clearly in full effect right now.
Yeah, you know, and the Raymond muff came from nowhere too, because I don't really care about the other. Every punter has these little muffs. They always do. But that one was inexcusable, and it came from nowhere because at this point in the two games he had played, he was actually, I actually thought, hey, we got ourselves a punt returner, and then he goes ahead and screws that up. So I guess it's hard to find these guys, and we haven't had a really reliable punt returner in a while. I know on SNY I always like to listen to what they have to say for I like to critique a lot of the things they say. Sometimes they'll bring in some better commentary, and I know they've got a better staff this year, so I'm happy about that. But you know, they said, well, why don't you put Jeremy Curley back there, you know, and okay, well, whatever. You know, I've seen enough of Jeremy Curley returning punts for one lifetime. I know he's a reliable catcher, and I get that, but the guy's supposed to be a punt returner, and just let him do it. You're a young team. Hopefully he'll be your future. Apparently, maybe not. Maybe he gets another chance. You know, we're not a Super Bowl winning team. He deserves another chance. I think he's proven himself. He's going to make mistakes. That's the way it is. Unfortunately, part of the problem that I think we both agree that we're upset about what's going on with Bowles is because of the fact that he has been going to his veterans and leaning on them more. Why? I don't. You know, we're going to get into the whole reason of why Josh McCown is still around. Why didn't the press even ask Todd Bowles if Josh McCown is going to be the quarterback? I guess they're okay with that because we're not. Why is Jeremy Curley playing? What did he play? 44 snaps in his first game back with the Jets in a couple years, one more than Anderson, and combined Stewart, Peak, and Hansen at 21 snaps. This is supposed to be this is how we turn over the franchise to younger players.
Well, I mean, I guess they also want to show that they're attempting to win games. You can't just use the young guys completely. Look, using Curse, I don't think any of us will argue that using Curse is fine, especially the way he's played the first couple of weeks.
It's been awesome.
Probably exceeded our expectations from what we thought he'd provide. I mean, I don't get playing Curley, especially over the kids like Hansen or Stewart. I mean, in my opinion, there's no reason to really do that. You want to pick him up and maybe add another guy to your roster, another veteran presence. It's fine. Use him liberally, but I wouldn't necessarily be using him at the expense of others. So in terms of that, I really can't explain what the rationale is for playing them. Though, look, I really can't argue that much with Morton. I think we've seen signs at least that he's innovative to a certain extent. He's willing to take chances. While the offense, I wouldn't say, has been humming, I don't necessarily put a lot of the blame fully on the offense because I just don't know if they have the talent, especially on the offensive line, to succeed. But I do like some of the things that he's done scheme-wise in terms of running some of the plays. And look, hey, if there's any solace in it, we're outscoring the Giants. If that means anything to you,
Well, that just shows you that it's early.
that's being sarcastic.
And well, look, as bad as but still, as bad as the team is, you can be sarcastic, but the Giants do look pretty bad. I mean, if we played the Giants next week, it would be a close game. So
I don't know about that.
Come on, the Giants have looked awful.
Wait, they've looked awful, but they are still, in my opinion, a much better
of course
team
they
than
are.
the other team
of course they are.
That resides in MetLife Stadium.
They are, but they look awful. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe later in the year, the Giants will probably beat us up. But I don't know. Again, it all depends on whether or not we decide to actually wake up or Bowles gets fired and we switch quarterbacks. Again, the snap count thing is ridiculous. And then look at the defense. Look at these linebackers. Look, we said this last year. Why won't Bowles? Two things. Why about Bowles? Actually, and there's a lot of things about a whole bunch of reasons why he shouldn't be around. But he was brought here as a defensive guy. They liked him. Apparently, I guess they liked him because he was this innovative guy who could figure out ways to. Arizona blitzed the hell out of everybody, and it was exciting defense. And they brought this exciting defensive coach to New York. He has been lame. I don't want to hear anything about personnel issues. You see, he has proven once again that he doesn't know how to adjust. Because how on earth does Davis and Lee, especially Lee, okay, because Davis is just completely, in my opinion, probably out of position, and the guy should only be playing on like 2 downs. And when you play the guy every snap on defense, are you insane? And then you're using Davis to cover running backs instead of Lee. I read this report from Dan Shank. I wanted to go back to his scouting report on Darren Lee because I had to think about it for a second, and I go, wait a second. I'm saying to myself, Darren Lee is an inside linebacker. Why is he an inside linebacker? And I looked at the draft guide, and it goes, and he's got him under outside linebacker. I go, I remember that. I'm saying, what is he doing inside when the guy's like spare? I mean, the kid's a puny guy. So if you look at his scouting report, he can cover inside pass catchers. Okay, that's what he does well. And what does Bowles do? He has Davis, who basically is a one-dimensional run-stuffing linebacker covering running backs. Then his scouting report on Lee tends to struggle in the box. Where does Bowles play him? In the box. And then finally, elite athlete, and take a look at his stats at college. 2 years at Ohio State, and you want to know why he was drafted as high as he was? Because in just 2 years, he had 147 tackles, 27.5 for loss, and 3 defensive touchdowns, and that's in the Big Ten. Where is that guy right now? That's why when you were talking about where's Mo Wilkerson, where's Leonard Williams, I don't think it's Mo Wilkerson. I don't think it's Leonard Williams. I don't think it's Darren Lee. It's Todd Bowles. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Kind of hard to argue that he doesn't know what he's doing. If you can say that he's deploying players in the wrong positions, and based upon what you just laid out, that clearly is the case. But I also put it upon the team in terms of all the missed tackles and everything else. That's not a deployment of personnel. That's the performance of the personnel. And if you want to say it's a combination of both, I won't argue with you. But I got to be honest with you. Whatever is wrong with Darren Lee, and maybe it is him playing in the wrong position, he looks like a shell of the player that we expected when we drafted him that high. I actually said, and you can yell at me all you want, I'm starting to get flashbacks to Vernon Golston all over again as another Ohio State guy who turned out to be a bust, because Lee to me hasn't shown me much of anything. The amount of missed tackles he had in week 1 was staggering, although probably only exceeded this week by the amount of missed tackles that Burris had, because, oh my God, was he horrific this week. I mean, it is amazing how bad this team has been defensively on a unit that we expected to potentially carry this team and at best keep them in certain games until the offense caught up. And right now, the offense hasn't been particularly good, but the defense is doing them absolutely no favors in terms of the way they're playing and their inability to stop anybody on almost any down so far this year.
And speaking of those missed tackles, here's another deployment that made no sense, was the Cordell Patterson touchdown. What on earth is Todd Bowles doing placing 2 linebackers over the center, especially when one of them is Darren Lee? What do you think is going to happen when they run the ball with mammoth offensive linemen having to block 2 linebackers, especially when one of them is Darren Lee. Well, you know what's going to happen? There's going to be a big hole, and that's exactly what happened.
And we saw what happened. I mean, the same thing almost happened on the Jalen Richard, where he went up the gut and basically cut it and went outside. Now, Patterson, the only difference was he didn't have to cut it to the outside because the hole up the middle was so huge, he could have ridden a tractor through it. I mean, it was ridiculous on 3rd and 1 that he got so far up the middle, but agreed. You want to take these guys and put them 2 yards back and make the center and make a decision in terms of who to block? Absolutely. But putting them that close to the line, and especially when you don't have the support in terms of your fill-ins from either the safeties being higher in the box, then that's a poor deployment in terms of personnel. And as we saw both on that touchdown and on the Jalen Richard touchdown, they got beat right up the middle, and each of them went for huge gainers.
And speaking of Jalen Richard, another big gain. What is this? This is now like almost 100 yards in 2 plays that Buster Screen has given up because he couldn't tackle a receiver. And this guy is another guy that's getting almost every defensive rep. And we talked about this when McDougal was traded. We said, okay, McDougal's having a good preseason. He should even get first reps at the end of the preseason. Why isn't he getting first team reps? And then when he was traded, we go, okay, well, they brought in Brooks. Brooks is the type of guy that makes sense under Bowles' system. So, okay, we'll give him a shot. Where's Brooks? They basically traded McDougal, who was having a tremendous preseason, who could have been playing instead of Screen, for a guy who doesn't get any reps. And whose fault is that? See, this is the problem when you hire Maccagnan and Bowles basically tied to the hip. Why do you think Darren Lee was drafted? He wasn't drafted because Mike Maccagnan wanted Darren Lee. Mike Maccagnan drafted Darren Lee because he goes, yeah, okay, he's a good player. But Bowles was like, I need that type of guy. That's the guy I need. Okay, I like him. He's a good player. I'll draft him. Same thing with Brooks. Okay, he's a guy that you need. I'll go trade McDougal and get him. There's no doubt in my mind that these moves are being made, some of them because of Todd Bowles. And that has him written all over it on defense. That's his. I'm sure that's part of it. I'm sure that's a lot of it. So Todd Bowles like, I want these guys to fit my scheme. Maccagnan's getting him for him, and these guys are not producing, and he's not even playing some of them.
Well, Maccagnan better make sure that he brings in personnel that fits what he wants to do.
He better.
If he doesn't, he's going to be out of a job as well.
He will. Absolutely. And that's the thing is, we don't really understand in that front office, in that building, who's making all those decisions. Are they going, okay, it's, like when they hired these guys, was it, okay, you guys work together, and if it works, you're both going to be together for a long time. If it doesn't, you're both getting fired together. We don't know. Nobody knows. So we're going to find out soon enough. And see, I'm not really blaming every GM. Even Ozzie Newsome's had a bad few years with drafts. Every GM, even Bill Belichick went through 3 or 4 years where he was getting nobody in the draft. So I think Maccagnan's done okay. He's brought in Leonard Williams, Jamal Adams, and again, the Curse trade was a good one. And we've got some good picks. He saved a lot of money with his contract situation for next year. So I'm okay with Maccagnan. I think he deserves a shot. But yes, I agree with you. He needs to now say to himself, if he has the power, that's it. For now on, I'm doing things my way. If I have 51% control, that means I'm the one in charge. And if things don't start, changing here real soon, he's going before I go. And the number one priority has got to be, if you don't sit Josh McCown, you're fired. Because nobody's going to go to the games. Nobody's going to watch him anymore. I don't care how statistically good Josh McCown looks. As long as they continue to lose, we don't want to see him out there. It's an embarrassment. It's an absolute embarrassment that this team is this bad. We got 2 young quarterbacks sitting on the bench and a 38-year-old playing.
We spoke before the season started that the organization in general needs to refigure how they go ahead and determine the reporting lines. And the problem is right now, as we've discussed also, is that both Maccagnan and Bowles report to Woody Johnson, that there's no clear delineation of who's the boss.
Or his son now, right? His son's running
yeah. Now it goes to his brother, I think.
Brother?
So
okay, his
there's
brother.
no delineation in terms of who does what in that organization, which has been a problem for several years. And even if you have the best of relationship, you need to have one person who makes the decisions, and it shouldn't necessarily be the owner when it comes to personnel decisions. This is something that in my opinion, should be um, under the header of GM coach. That's how the order should work in terms of an
Oh,
organization.
absolutely.
That's how good organizations work. That's how you should have the level of the organization. You shouldn't have both people reporting to the same person at the same time. And that's part of the problem with this organization. You don't know who the leadership is, because both of them can go to Woody, and Woody has to choose one or the other. It should be Bowles should have a reporting line to McCagnon, and McCagnon should roll up to Johnson. End of story. That's how it should work. It doesn't work that way. And whether or not that's the cause of all these issues, I don't know. But whatever it is, what we thought was supposed to be the strength of their defense has clearly been an absolute negative so far.
So part of the problem with the media not asking Bowles about McCown or Petty is because the media, most of them, they're idiots. Because most of them think that Bryce Petty is nothing but a scab. So they don't think anything of him. So they're not even going to ask. And they know that Hackenberg isn't ready. So they don't even ask. They just go, McCown, he's not really the problem. And if he was on the Cowboys or something, maybe they wouldn't be all that bad. Wouldn't be necessarily his fault. But this team is so bad. What are they going to do? That's how the media is reacting to the quarterback situation. What are they going to do? They have no other options. And that just shows you that a lot of these people are just idiots. And that's why it just shows you why the Patriots keep winning Super Bowls, because most of the people running these organizations are idiots. And and it's clear to me and you that Bryce Petty deserves a shot. He was the number 2 quarterback last week because that means he was healthy. And when the game is 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and they're down by 30, why isn't Petty playing?
I don't have an answer for you. I don't. I mean, look, I don't blame McCown, because I don't think McCown has played that badly, to be honest with you.
No, I agree.
But again, if your goal is to look towards the future, then look towards the future and play the guys that have the future. And maybe game 3, maybe game 4 is when that change comes. But you have to figure that change is coming. I mean, they're home this week. Maybe they get a win. I'm not that overly confident. I'm more curious to see how many people actually show up to the game, because it is the first home game. But I'm not overly confident that they're going to get the win this week. And then, or do you have any confidence down the road when they play Cleveland, they'll be Cleveland? I mean, but they're 0-2. The suck for Sam watch is clearly on, and that's potentially what they're looking for, is to get one of the top 3 picks to hopefully get one of the quarterbacks. And that's the goal of the season, even they won't explicitly admit it.
No, they're not going to win any games with McCown. I'll tell you that right now. They're not winning any games. And part of it is not just because of him. Part of it is because the team needs a spark. The team needs something to get excited about. You can respect McCown, but they're not dummies. They know he's not going to be around long. They know he's not even going to be the starter by the end of the season. They know at some point he will leave, and that's that they may not know when, but inside they know. And sparks can do a lot for the entire team. They can improve a lot of deficiencies. And this just shows you again why Bowles is a moron, because he doesn't understand this. He has been content to play guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick and Josh McCown. How absolutely clueless can you be to feel that you are better off as an organization playing these guys? I mean, it's embarrassing, and it's getting sickening to this point now. And if anything, you see, I would sit there. Sometimes I sit there and I go, well, maybe they're doing this on purpose. Maybe they are tanking. And I say to myself, yeah, but no, because that ain't giving them too much credit. The actuality is that they're just too stupid. That's why, because if they were really smart about tanking and thinking of the future, then they'd play the kids. They can't actually because if they actually thought, there's no way that they're thinking, oh, if I play Petty, we'll win, and that'll cost us games. There's no way they're thinking that. So that just shows you that they don't know anything, nothing about what they're doing. And sooner or later, and it's going to probably, and the other thing that bothers me is I don't enjoy watching these games like I have for the past year and a half or a year and a couple of games and not really giving a crap whether they win or not. Because back of my mind, like we said in the beginning of the season, if they do win a game or two, the longer they do that with McCown, he won't bench him. And I think we're seeing proof right now that if they do go out and beat the Dolphins, that gives McCown at least another 2 or 3 games. And if he wins a second game in the first 4 or 5, he'll give him 8 or 9. It's better for this team to just lose for the next couple of weeks, get him out of there so we can get these kids in there. And the more time Petty has to prove himself, the more opportunity he'll have to start next year if he does prove himself.
Well, the question becomes is when do you make that big time change? When do you start sitting on the quote unquote veterans and playing all the kids? And I'm not quite sure if we're necessarily at that stage yet, but I think we're starting to rapidly approach getting to that stage.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, if you look at other veterans, I don't really know who else there would be, except of course the guys that are. There's a couple of them: McCown, Screen, and Forte.
Well, are you sitting Davis
and
to
Curley?
Play maybe one of the kid linebackers, or are you playing?
Well, who would that be though? Who would
take
over for Davis?
You already have the 2 kids in the secondary, so you're not making any changes there.
Yeah, but who would take over for Davis? I mean, again, I think what it is you fire Bowles. You bring and you let one of the other defensive coaches change scheme, or I mean, you can't change completely, but change something so Davis only plays when he's supposed to play, and other guys are playing, another and again, where's Bruce Carter? You're gonna tell me that they actually think Freddie Bishop is better than Bruce Carter? Freddie Bishop stinks. He's not even a pro. What is he even doing on this roster? And then you take a look at let me ask you a question. Who's our best linebacker? I answered this question for you last week. Who's the best linebacker we have right now?
I honestly don't know.
Well, give me a name. I think it's obvious. I'm not trying to say he's a star, but it's obvious to me who the best linebacker is.
Okay.
It's Jenkins. It's the best linebacker. He's not a bad player.
Okay.
He's a good player. He's not a great player. He's a good player. You know how many snaps Jenkins had? 34. So once again, Bowles can't figure out that you play your best players most of the time, no matter how you have to change the scheme. You can't play your scheme and try to fit the square pegs into the round holes because you can't adjust. And guys like Jenkins sit the bench, and guys like Lee and Davis are playing all day long. That just shows you what right there. That is absolute proof. He can't figure things out. There is no way Jenkins should be playing less, almost half the snaps than Lee and Davis.
I'm not arguing with you on that. We just look. When does the chances for Lee run out? My opinion, as you've said, if it is true that it's more a deployment issue as opposed to a talent issue, and again, for me right now, it's hard to separate the two because I haven't seen him in another role to see if it's really the case.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that if they do make a change of coach or defensive coordinator, he gets another shot, likely next year. And then after that, they move on because right now, to me, he's looking like a waste of a draft pick.
Well, he only has, 2 years left anyway? He's got, one more year left on his rookie deal?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is you give him that year and you kind of see where he goes from there and you see what happens because as all the hype that we gave him coming into the league and all of what we thought he was going to be, I don't think either one of us have seen any semblance of the talent he displayed in college. And I'm reluctant to say that it's all a deployment issue because I think last year he was probably utilized right and maybe the game was either too fast for him or he was moving too fast for the game, whichever one you prefer. But I'm not enamored with what I've seen so far. It's kind of hard to be. Kind of hard to be enamored with what you've seen so far.
Well, a couple of things. One, we do have to keep in mind the kid came out as a redshirt sophomore. He's a young kid. All right, so we're willing to give him a little bit of an opportunity. Number two, like I just said about, especially look, I even think that there were some plays where we saw Wilkerson make where we're like, okay, there were some flashes, but Leonard Williams is a stud. Where is he? What's he doing? How can Leonard Williams not do anything when the guy is that talented? That's not Leonard Williams. See, we can sit there and we know Darren Lee may be too young. Okay, we haven't seen it. Leonard Williams is awesome. And if he can't figure out a way to make plays, it's not his fault. I'm telling you right now. And by the way, did you notice that Matt Forte had 27 snaps and Powell 18? Bilal Powell, one of the best players we have on offense. 18 snaps. Inexcusable.
the one thing I was happy to see was Elijah McGuire get some
Yes,
touches.
I agree. And that should be at the expense of Forte, not Powell. Why do they say that too? Well, I think I heard somebody say something about him playing over Powell. So why is he playing over Powell? He should be playing over Forte. This is just stupid. I will say that you mentioned Curse. We'll give props to 3 guys. Curse, without a doubt. And by the way, the guy's not 35 years old. He's 28. So why can't this guy be part of what we're trying to build here for the next 3 or 4 years? So very happy about Curse. Absolutely ecstatic. 2, you know what? I've been very critical, and I think it's been warranted because he's done nothing up until Sunday. Very good game for Dakota Dozier. Congratulations, you actually did something. And now let's hope that is the beginning of your career and it wasn't just a game. And 3, maybe our MVP of the offense is Catazero. The guy's nailing everything, so good for him.
And I said I was wrong. I admitted last week I wanted to keep Martin. I've admitted so far that he's kicked better than I expected Catazero.
All right. Now, I don't think there's any question that some coaches save their job and they do it accidentally. And usually when they save their job and do it accidentally, it's because of a quarterback situation. Usually, a quarterback that they keep going with because they're too stupid gets hurt. And then the other quarterback that they wouldn't put in comes in, does a great job, saves the coach's job, and he's around for the next 4 or 5 years. And I've seen other coaches that look like they're about to get run out of town, and they save their season somehow. I remember Sam Weish. Sam Weish would have been fired the year they went to the Super Bowl. But everything worked together from that year. They went to the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden, he's like the second best coach they had there in the last, since Paul Brown. So if Bowles is going to save his job, maybe he gets lucky. McCown winds up getting dinged for a quarter. You bring Petty in. Petty does fantastic. He keeps him in. Petty actually rejuvenates the team. They go 6-10, but an exciting 6-10. He comes back next year. He hangs around. Anything short of that, and there is absolutely no doubt that Todd Bowles is fired. So the question is, when will he be fired? Now, I asked Jamal this question since he couldn't be on the team, so Jamal gave me his answer. I'll read his answer first. He believes that he will be fired before the season ends. So he says week 14. Now, I think that's kind of late. I think if they're going to fire Bowles, they do it earlier. If it's 14, then they might as well just let him go out the season. But who knows? I mean, Mike Maccagnan might be figuring these things out late, and he saves his job late. So anything's possible. I tell you what, because the way this organization has been run, as much as I want to fire him now, I get the feeling that he'll be fired after the season. I mean, I'd like to give a good game. I would. I'd like to go game 6, game 4. He won't replace McCown. Maccagnan's had enough. And I hope it happens in a couple of weeks. But I just, I've been through so much hell with this organization over the last few years that they won't get this right, and they'll fire him at the end of the season, and maybe Maccagnan with him. What about you?
I'm kind of your mindset where I think he makes it through the year and doesn't get fired until after the season ends.
And by the way, does it matter how many wins? So even if they are 1-10, he's still coaching.
The only way I think he gets fired is if the team quits on him,
okay,
and they're forced to make a change.
And do you think that's possible? Do you think they could quit on him?
If the team doesn't quit on him, then I think he lasts the season. If the team quits on him, or actually, let me rephrase that. If the team quits, or you start seeing bad habits from some of the young kids, whereby they're not being held accountable, or they're regressing, or they're taking their cues from veterans who are mailing it in, then to avoid losing those young kids like May and Adams and some of the other kids like that, then I think he may end up getting fired before that. But if not, and the team continues to play hard, and look, they just either don't have the talent, or don't have the right scheme, or don't have a combination thereof, then I think he ends up lasting the season and gets fired after the season.
Well, let me ask you then, do you think Todd Bowles was full shit yesterday Sunday in the press conference when he said that he thought the team played hard at the end of the game? Because they got whipped. And do you think he was just saying that because he wants the management to think that they were playing hard? Because, I don't know how you miss tackles and play hard. I mean, I guess you could.
Wait, hold on. Missing tackles has nothing to do with playing hard or not playing hard, in my opinion. I don't think you can equate missing tackles with mailing it in. I just think they played poorly. I don't necessarily equate that to them not playing hard. I don't think they played well. I don't think there's any question they didn't play well. but I don't know if I equate that to them mailing it in. I can separate the two.
All right. Now, what about a new coach? Because we know the Jets more than likely will have a new coach next year. I went over a list last year. A couple of those guys are gone. They lost their chance to bring in a couple more offensive guys, which I've been begging this organization to do because they haven't had an offensive guy coach this team now since I keep forgetting because it's been so long. Who was the last offensive guy? Was it Kozlet? I don't even remember. But it's been a long time since the Jets have hired an offensive coach. And who was it? Was it Carroll? No, Carroll's defense. Was it Kozlet? Who was after Kozlet?
Maybe because again, you had Edwards, who was a defensive coach, right?
Grow,
Ryan, who was a defensive coach, and Bowles was a defensive coach.
Parcells, Grow.
Parcells was a defensive coach.
Maybe it was Kozlet because it was Kozlet, Carroll. Who came after Carroll? Was it Parcells? No. Who came?
It was Parcells.
I'm trying to think. It's really bad run of coaches we had. So even though we had, it's just, of course, kind of funny. We had Carroll and let him go. That's us. All right. So anyway, it's been a long time, whatever it is. I didn't want to look up the research. But so here are the guys. In my top two, both offensive, obviously, are Sean Payton, whose contract runs out. A lot of people thought he could have left last year, and didn't. But his contract officially runs out at the end of this year, and he has the New York Giant ties. A lot of Giant fans want him to come to New York to coach the Giants, and maybe that could still happen if the Giants stink this year and they get fire McAdoo. But if the Giants don't end up stinking and McAdoo stays on and Peyton decides he wants to leave and he does, hey, you know what, New York, I've coached there before. I'll coach there. I'll run the team. And they give him complete control, especially, if they fire McCagnon, who knows, because Peyton probably wants complete control. And the other guy would be Todd Haley, the former Jet coach who coached when Parcells was here. He actually coached when Kotite was there, but Parcells kept him on. And of course, he's been coaching with Tomlin all these years. I know he coached the Chiefs 3 years. 1 year they won an AFC West crown. I think he deserves. There's no question he's going to become a head coach again. He's going to get a second chance. He deserves it. So there just aren't a lot of other guys out there in my mind on offense. So I would go Todd Haley and Sean Payton. Who would you go with?
Well, Haley certainly would have interesting press conferences. That's certainly for sure, because he clearly has a way of speaking his mind and not keeping his mouth quiet.
That's good.
Peyton,
we can use that.
If Peyton decides to leave, he'll clearly have a lot of suitors. So why would you come to New York, even if though it is New York, to coach the Jets, when you clearly can go lots of other places that may be much better and easier fits and don't have the overhaul that's required in New York?
Well, again, remember, when he comes to New York, any coach that's going to be coming to this team, or any GM, depending if McCagnon is going to be here or not, is going to see a great opportunity with draft picks and salary cap space and young players already in place. So, and it's New York, and they got an owner that will spend money. So it's not a bad situation for a guy, because if you think about it, and you're a guy who has an ego, and hey, you know what, I can do anything. That's where you'd want to go. You want to go to New York, and you want to go to a situation that's draft picks and salary cap space. I mean, there's nothing bad. I mean, sure, if you want to go to a team that's 8-8 and already has an established quarterback, you do it easy. Anybody can do that. But if you've got an ego and you know that I could turn this thing around, yeah, I'm running the team. It's my whole show. I'll show everybody how great I am. I actually think New York's a good spot, especially next year, the way that they're set up. They don't have the bad cap situation that they had, a few years ago. The one college guy I want to keep an eye on is Dan Mullen. I really like Dan Mullen a lot, and he's done a tremendous job there. If he happens after the big win over LSU, if he happens to have a really good season this season, I think I know he's going to continue to be a college coach more than likely, but we've seen college coaches go to the NFL before. Not my first choice, because we want to have somebody with head coaching experience with the Jets and preferably offense. That would be the preferable, mix that we haven't had in so long. But I'd rather go with a guy who's a head coach in college than go to a guy that's never been a head coach before, because I don't think there's any doubt that the organization cannot go to a first-time head coach again. It's got to go to either a head coach in the NFL experience, or if you want to go to college, that's fine. But, I'd rather go with the college head coach experience than the assistant in the NFL who's never been a head coach.
Makes sense. I mean, I don't necessarily know if I want to go coach not having coached anywhere else and having to figure it all out on the fly. But there's also, to a certain extent, the benefit of a guy not having been jaded or influenced by other places that he's been as a head coach. If you can find an assistant, look, they finished second and didn't want to wait for Dan Quinn a couple of years ago. How much better would this team probably be if they had Dan Quinn as their coach right now?
Yeah, no, that's true. And that's why, you look at a guy like Haley, same type of fiery disposition as you mentioned. And that's what really, see, it happens a lot when you're hiring, and anytime you have a guy and there's issues and you go to another guy, you always want to go to the opposite of that guy. And that's what we've been doing lately. We're going with, we're going up and down with the coaches who are kind of blasé to fiery to blasé to fiery. So the next coach will probably be, if they do wind up going with a defensive guy for Pete's sake, would be a fiery guy. And the only other fiery guy out there on defense that I would actually be willing to give a chance to, even though it wouldn't be like my top 4 or 5 picks. But again, we're talking about a very good, smart defensive coach that is a passionate guy, would be Greg Williams. I think he's done a tremendous job as a defensive coach. He's a crazy man. He's already doing a great job in Cleveland this year. But again, he's not anywhere near my top 4 or 5. But if I'm going to go on defense, and by the way, the Patriots probably, I don't know if they can steal, one of their coaches. Patricia could be a head coach in waiting, and somebody's going to hire Josh McDaniels again.
Yeah, and McDaniels is the guy I would consider, but I just can't see another Patriot guy ending up with the Jets.
All right, so that will wrap it up. We will talk again early next week on Monday. That's our regular day. We only missed the day because we weren't feeling well, but this is in the books. So, Jan, appreciate your time as always. And Dolphin game is on Sunday at 1 o'clock, I guess? I don't even know.
Yep, that's a Jet home opener. I am very curious to see what the crowd is like, and then if
how
it
quickly
goes
they
south,
boo,
how quickly they turn and start streaming out of the crowd.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm rooting for. I don't know if I might be rooting for a bad first quarter and just a wave of boos early to influence the coaching. To influence management on what's going on. That might be the best, quickest death for us. I want a quick death.
Well,
I don't want a painless death. A painful death.
We'll see how many bags are on people's heads, and that'll be a pretty good indication.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate it. Yeah, maybe if we get the bags on the head, Sean Payton can go, hey, wait a second. I think I went to an organization that had bags on the head before, and I helped them take those bags off. So that might be a good thing. Maybe they could even put Sean, we want Sean Payton on the bags. Okay, Jan, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next Monday.
Sounds good.
All right, that's Jan Levine, and you can follow Jan Levine on his Twitter handle at, you guessed it. No, actually, it's not Jan Levine. Jan and Jamal have Twitter handles that do not say their name. I have a lot of analysts on this network that do. But Jan actually is at AirJan23. Jamal is at Blackatologist. And, of course, we're at Prime SN. You're probably wondering, well, what is Blackatologist? Well, that's because Jamal's a big basketball guy, too. Matter of fact, Jamal does our net show. We have a net show that we did in the offseason. We did it for the draft and free agency. So as a precursor to our first season that we're starting next week. We'll be doing a preseason Brooklyn Nets show next week. And then Jamal will also be with me to talk college basketball this year. And, of course, the NBA with the Nets show. And then Jan will be with me to talk hockey. So we'll be talking hockey and his Rangers real soon. So we're working on that. Of course, that season starts before the NBA. So both Jamal and Jan work with me as well on NBA, college basketball, and hockey. All right, so that is going to wrap it up. And we will talk to you again on Monday. And what else do we have, by the way? I know we're a little bit backlogged on the shows because we missed one yesterday. So we missed the Arlett's Football Network Monday show, OFN Mondays. But that show will be actually, I don't think we're going to have that show this week. Well, you can't have OFN Mondays on Wednesday. So we have the show tomorrow. the OFN show tomorrow. Dan Chonk will be with me. Jamal Murphy will be with me. And then the OFN show Thursday with Tony Mejia for the NFL. And Friday for fantasy football. So we will talk college, pro, and fantasy the rest of the week on OFN, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then we'll see you at 12 o'clock tomorrow for Prime Sports Golf. That's our next show right here on the Prime Sports Radio Network, as we have one more event to go on the PGA Tour Season Tour Championship. So we'll talk about that tomorrow at noon. So for Jan Levine, and again, we'll see Jamal Murphy. We'll talk to him again next Monday. I'm your host, Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in to Jets Confidential Radio on the Prime Sports Radio Network. Don't forget, if you want to order a Jets Confidential magazine, go to jetsconfidential.com and check it out. You can also give them a call at 800-932-4557 or go to the website, jetsconfidential.com. So we'll see you on Monday right here on the Prime Sports Radio Network.